Google makes algorithm changes all the time, but these that have come in the past year are different. And it could be the difference between your law firm just surviving or thriving. Have you been feeling the pinch from these latest Google algorithm updates? Well, let's assess the damage and figure out what we can do to mitigate it and then come out better on the other side and actually turn this into an opportunity. Google algorithm updates can be absolutely devastating, but if you're ready to turn these challenges into opportunities, I'm going to show you how you can take these and turn them into big advantages for your law firm over other competitors in the same space. Welcome to another episode of the Optimized Law Firm podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Carver, and I'm the CEO of Constellation Marketing. The whole purpose of this podcast is to help you run a more enjoyable and profitable law firm. So we cover marketing topics, operations, pretty much anything that kind of fits with that mission statement. We work with 90 clients, focus on 6 practice areas, and we've been doing this for over 8 years now. So really excited to share some of our insights and help you stay ahead of the game. So even if you're not looking for a marketing company, happy to help, happy to share some of the latest trends out there and, really just try to help you make sense out of all of that information and noise that's out there in the marketing space. So today we are going to cover Google algorithm updates. And in particular, there's been a string of algorithm updates over the past year that have been kind of different in comparison to other updates in the past. And so we are going to help you understand how you can adapt your law firm's SEO strategy to these updates in 2024 and put yourself on a good, sustainable path for, not only the rest of the year, but into the future. And so we are going to cover everything about these updates, kind of what they are, how you can understand them with your firm. Then we're going to look at assessing kind of the impact if you've been hit by one of these and how you can go about telling if you've been hit. And then finally, we are going to talk about how to minimize losses, what you can actually learn from them, and then ultimately turn that negative into a positive. So I'm really excited to get into the weeds on this one and get you guys on a path of, a proactive SEO strategy that's really going to benefit you for years and for months and years to come. So let's get started with the first section, understanding Google's core algorithm updates. And in this section, we're going to cover what Google core updates are, why they're so critical. We'll also cover improvements in Google's ranking systems, kind of what they're trying to do here, focused on AI content. And then I'm also going to touch on the spam policies, including how Google targeted AI-generated content in this last batch, and really understanding why they do these updates, what purpose they're serving. I think is really the first step to coming out on the beneficial end of this, so that you're not caught by surprise, and that if you have had a downturn in traffic and ultimately business, you can quickly resurrect that and move things in the right direction. So we noticed a pretty large shift in the amount of leads that were coming into our clients in July. So it was about roughly a 10% drop across the board for our clients from the organic SEO channel. And so that's obviously a pretty big deal, right, when it affects everybody like that. And so we started to do some more research, and we got to focus on a really just a single algorithm update that Google had done earlier this year. And Google core updates are very normal. They typically happen in the past about 4 times a year. It seems like they're doing more of them in this past year, that the frequency has seemed to increase, where they're going and kind of shuffling making big large scale changes to the algorithm. So this past group that they've done has felt a little different, because typically when we go through an algorithm change, we'll have a few people who are negatively impacted. And typically what happens during this is that they are changing something to the weighting of the algorithm. And so throughout the year, you have these core algorithm updates. You also have these smaller versions of them. Those are really, meant to kind of solve smaller issues and be more targeted or surgical. The broad core algorithm updates are going to be much more expansive, right? And so you may have heard about something like the YMYL, like Your Money, Your Life update a while back. And they all have kind of a specific purpose where they are seeing a trend out on the internet, and it's allowing people to benefit from the algorithm as it currently is. They, for whatever reason, don't believe that those people should be benefiting from that. And so they look to adjust the algorithm so that in their mind, the right people are getting rewarded with positions on search and ultimately traffic. And then for us in our vertical is going to be leads or sales with other websites. So these often happen, and you hear about it and you see a bunch of articles and news, and people try to kind of understand what they're all about. And then you notice a lot of activity, a lot of noise happening where you might see like one page that you have on your website just completely go vertical in terms of now it's like the number one page in the country, and you immediately get plugged into all of this traffic. And so we've seen this with our clients where they might be ranking for something like Immigration Lawyer Atlanta, and then because of a big update, Google effectively is like shuffling the deck, right? And so they've been having these consistent keyword positions, and then when you do something like this, it rewards them, and out of nowhere, they now become on the first page for Immigration Lawyer nationally, right? So their traffic just skyrockets. We've also seen it the other way, where people have individual pages that go down, right? They were ranking for something pretty well, and then the next day they're not ranking at all. After this initial, noise, you get into a process where they're fine tuning it over the next couple of weeks to where it's kind of smoothing out or balancing out, and they look to kind of see what impact those updates had, kind of listening to the community, doing their own assessment of, hey, did this really accomplish the goal that we wanted to? And from there, then they're going to kind of like pull it back a little bit or make those changes. And so that gets us to this current update that happened in roughly around July. And this one was pretty interesting because it had a really sizable effect on parts of the SEO community. I'm not going to go into all of that. I'll stick exclusively to how this relates to law firms and their websites. One of the things that we noticed was that they were attempting to handle or take action on AI-driven content. And the reason they did this was because there's been this rise of AI writing tools where you can push a button and it's going to pump out an article for you. So what this led to on the SEO side was that people basically just unleashed this absolute monsoon of content development that was happening, because now you could go into the machine, press one button, and it can write literally 1,000 pages. So you could go say, I want to build a website about law and about personal injury law. Click a couple buttons, and it's going to write 1,000 pages. All of that gets published, and gets out into the mainstream. Some people were doing this and doing it with a lot of success, and so particularly on the affiliate side of SEO, where they're trying to drive sales to products they own or things like that, people were really using this and getting pretty good results. That more or less angered Google, and because it goes against kind of their idea that people that they want to reward in the search algorithm should be creating quality content that at first it was always human written content. They've since adjusted that policy and their statements around it to say basically, okay, we don't really care who wrote the content, but it has to be helpful. It has to be up to date. It has to have this quality component. So as a byproduct of this rapid increase in the amount of content out there, they really tried to clamp down on this. And they have their biggest cost for Google is going out there and indexing all of this content and material. And so for them, if they wake up one day and now they have 5 billion more pages to go out there and scan and review and evaluate and try to put in their search, that's an enormous amount of computing power that they simply can't do at this stage. And so they took all these steps to try and get people to basically scare them into creating these enormous all content, all AI type websites. So back to really how this affects you as a law firm site. What we noticed during this whole process was that one of the things that appeared to have happened because of this change was that the algorithm shifted more towards relying on links or authority signals to choose who was going to then be featured in the search results. My theory on this was that basically authority signals are harder to fake, right? You can go out there and create a website with 5,000 pages, but it's a whole different ballgame trying to go out and get links to that website. Those typically have to be, even if you're epic at it and can do it, there's still a time horizon on that. And so what they did was go in and look at websites who published an enormous amount of content, like thousands of articles over a small period of time in Google Search Console. So the blowback on this, or the collateral damage for some of our attorneys that we noticed, was that they were no longer ranking, or were ranking lower, and that they were being offset by some law firms that had absolutely no business ranking for that area. And the biggest example I can think of here is that we have an immigration lawyer who has tremendous positions, really dominates, and we found in a couple of the SERPs, they were being outmaneuvered or outranked by a personal injury firm in town that only had like one page about immigration. So in Google's eyes, and what we have seen from our own work, is that would not give the searcher a quality experience, because they are not an expert. And so it's kind of one of these like quirks that happens when the big algorithm updates happen, and over time that has been fixed, and so it's been changed. And so we saw that in some cases the site that was not fit as or equipped to deal with that user was benefiting. And so people who were doing a really good job of creating topical authority on their website and building a lot of articles and talking about really trying to become the leader of information in their market, paid the price. But the good thing about these updates is that over time they start to move back in the other direction. Probably the biggest thing though that we noticed is, in addition to this algorithm update, there was also a large change with how Google is creating search results. So you have probably started to see these AI summaries that are now pretty have a lot of traction across the internet, and you'll see them at the top. So you'll put in a question or something like that, and now instead of putting web results right there directly, they've got this little block that's like AI summary. This was created by Gemini. And this is the thing that we've seen impact our clients the most. And this is really what factored into that big 10 point swing in terms of leads. And what we figured out with this is that these AI summaries typically are chipping away at the attorney's informational queries. And so on any good law firm website, you've got pages that are targeting the user. So you got people targeting your client, your potential client. So that's like somebody searching criminal lawyer Tennessee or criminal lawyer Memphis, something like that, where it's like they want your service, right? And so it's very specific. But to rank for those things, you also have to rank for all of these other queries out there that are informational based, because Google wants to see topical authorities. They want people who understand the whole context of an issue. And so if we were wanting to rank for criminal attorney Memphis, we would also be wanting to rank for criminal laws in Tennessee, misdemeanor laws in Tennessee, felony in Tennessee. Then we would want to talk about any specific rules that are in Memphis, and go down this whole list of every possible subject that is interconnected to our focus area. And what we saw with this is that more of these informational queries were getting absorbed by Google. So instead of our client being that first result for an informational query, it was Google. And so it basically effectively is taking our spotlight, right? And so the interesting part was about this whole thing was there is money to be made with creating informational content on your website. It's not where we would spend most of our time. We focus on that high intent content. But it is interesting to note that, yes, people are finding education-based articles about their particular situation, like sentencing penalties for a certain type of thing, or like procedural stuff about a court, and those are turning into calls. They're turning into leads, and so it's a pretty cool vote of confidence for the fact that like informational content on your website is a great strategy, and it not only accomplishes the SEO component, but it also can pay the bills, right? It gets people in there who are wanting to actually need a service, right? So I think I've covered that pretty in depth. I could go on with this for a day, but for the sake of everyone's time, I'm just gonna kind of cap it there. And always happy to discuss this in more detail with you if you've been affected and you noticed a big drop in these leads since July, and you're not really sure how to get back there, because we're testing some strategies of how to occupy that space again and basically fight back against this, which we'll cover at some point in this content, but we're doing that right now with our clients. So let's go into assessing the impact on your law firm's website, how we go about doing that, and kind of what you need to be looking for before taking drastic action or any action at all. So it's actually pretty simple to understand the impact of these algorithm updates. And there's really just one way. It comes down to results, right? So if you track your leads on a monthly basis, or have some idea of how many leads have a baseline, the first thing to ask is that month's performance, was July or August now, was that out of a standard deviation of the baseline that we have? You can get into traffic as well, or keyword positions as well, but one thing I preach for our clients is you don't need to be the experts on kind of the sub metrics or the level 2 metrics. We scrutinize those things and we look at those all the time, because if the end product is leads and paying customers, that has to be started at the keyword level, and then that creates traffic and so on and so on. So there's two ways to diagnose that, right? You can look at the actual lead count and see was there a difference there. You can also go in and look, at the keyword level as well, or the traffic level as well. We typically will use a tool like Ahrefs, or other ones out there you can do like SEMrush and Moz. Those are really perfect for understanding keywords. Did you lose keywords? Did your positions change? Things like that. Because if you have a really high performing keyword and that goes away, it can have a massive impact. I mean, it can really change how many leads you're receiving and cut them by 25% or 50%. if you're, if you have one of these that is really producing for you. Another way to do this is also just going to Google Analytics. And the way I would approach this to understand, like, was I hit by this? You want to look at the comparison data, right? You want to get an idea of what your average organic traffic is for the website month by month over, let's say, the previous 6 months or so. And then you want to compare your last couple months. And so you can do that in Google Analytics or most tools that are going to provide analytics by looking at July and then compare that to other periods. And you can basically just go do, change the month that you're comparing to and do it really quickly and kind of get a range for that. Now, if you want even more granularity, you can then go into the page of Google Analytics where it's going to break down the page-by-page content. And it will do effectively the same thing. You'll be able to run a comparison between one particular point in time versus previous periods. That's going to match up with a big list of content on your website. And so you'll be able to know, kind of pinpoint which pages suffered the most and, which ones you need to focus on, because there's, often I think, misunderstanding around SEO that it's kind of monolithic in that, if you have a big like drop in traffic or something like that for a month, and you're coming off of a situation like this where there's an algorithm change, your first instinct is kind of to think like, okay, like the whole ship is sinking, right? Like there's a big problem and it's happening with the entire website. But the truth is that a lot of times it will be isolated, the change will be isolated to one or a couple of pages. And in that case, you really want to be more tactical about which pages you go after, right? So instead of adopting a new sweeping site-wide adjustment, you really want to get in there and understand which specific pages were affected, because unless you have drops or gains all across the board, and the whole ship's is going down a little bit, you're going to be better off by going in and doing page optimizations per page, because typically it's going to be like 1 or 2 or 5 of your really high traffic pages that get hit. But the good news is that by using best practices, and we have a whole we have content about how to do the on-page SEO process and like what we do to evaluate it, but so I won't go into all that, but there's a way to get back, right? The algorithm is constantly changing. You can constantly change your content, right? That's how you fight back against this, is understand that, it's not monolithic. You need to change it over time. You need to freshen it, update it, add more, sometimes reduce, but it needs to get better over time. And by keeping that mentality, you're going to be able to put yourself into a better position to actually recover and make gains like this for the future. So let's talk about how to minimize losses and then maximize gains out of this situation. So anytime you see like a big drop from an algorithm, it can be super stressful, and it's further complicated by the fact that Google's not going to really tell you, for the most part, what they're actually doing in these updates. They'll say something cryptic or very generic, like we've changed to benefit publishers, or just something very kind of like generic. It's not really going to give you a ton of detail. And so after these updates come, your best bet is to really wait and see, right? And watch and see what actually happens, how your website is impacted during these. Probably the worst thing you can do during this is to go make radical changes based on what other people are talking about. Okay, so a common situation after these happen is that you have all these people who are, make their living out of dishing out SEO advice, and maybe they sell products or they train other people and stuff like that. And so they'll make these claims or theories about what what they're seeing in the change or what happened and what, what Google's thinking. But they don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's all, it all comes down to trial and error and just understanding, like evaluating your own data set. And so the effects that something like this will have on legal is completely different than, plumbing or animal foods or anything like that. And so be extremely careful about listening to, these kind of wide ranging opinions or what other people have said, because your best ally in this is looking at the actual data and understanding it, and then moving from there and creating a solution based on that. So anytime you see or hear that like a big algorithm change is coming and you're driving some traffic, the first thing I always recommend is basically do nothing. Do nothing for 1 to 2 weeks and kind of let things settle out. As I mentioned in the first part when we were talking about the algorithm process, you get this like big change, causes a lot of noise, and then it starts to kind of mellow out as they see, okay, we overshot here or overcompensated in this one area, so let's like pull that back a little bit and make these other modifications. And so you won't really know kind of your new position and the new state of the union for about 1 to 2 weeks from that. So that's the first step. Then you want to go in and look at the page by page level, really understand where you gained and where you dropped off. So I went over that process a little bit. You can do it in analytics. You can do it in a tool like Ahrefs, and you're looking for those pages that aren't doing well, right? That drop off significantly. And then what you want to do is go and evaluate your page compared to the ones that are the opposite, that gained a lot of traffic during that time. This is not really possible with Google Analytics, but with something like Ahrefs, it's absolutely possible. And so you're kind of going in with the mindset, it's like, okay, Google wants something different and it's not on my page. Well, what happened with these others who were previously not ranking and now ranking here? Or are there other pages that were previously ranking and continue to rank? You can go and look at these and just manually assess them yourself. Now, I don't recommend it. There's a bunch of tools out there like Surfer, Neuron Writer, who can do all of that data crunching for you and give you a better idea of what is the tangible difference between your page and the ones that are continue to rank. And so again, we do all of that in our SEO process. And so focus on the ones where there's been the biggest impact. That's going to give you the best bang for your buck from a time, and energy consumption standpoint. But do it, make sure you keep your, you log this stuff and then give it a couple weeks, right? Give it a couple weeks and see where you're at after that time period. And if you're not getting the gains you're looking for, go back at it again, right? Look through and see if you missed something, see if there's something, an additional additive that you can get there. The final thing I'll mention about this is like how to maximize gains, right? So part of it is playing good, kind of good defense, but you can also play offense with this too. And as you get some insights from your research about the ones that are doing poorly or have been affected, you're probably going to stumble across some nuggets. You're going to find out that, you do something on these other pages that were unaffected by the algorithm update, except for this one that was affected, right? And from there, that's when you're able to tell what Google's actually wanting or thinking when they make those changes. And so you might see, well, this page that went down was only about 500 words, whereas all the other ones that didn't go down are at least 2,000 words. Okay, so you start to get this idea like, all right, so this is probably more of a content-related update, and they're kind of reworking the algorithm to benefit web pages that have pretty sizable amounts of content on them and cover the topic in a lot of detail. And you can take that and then start applying it to all the other pages on your website, right? And if you have ones that have been performing well, you can even kind of double down on those efforts, right? And continue to add more content and make them, effectively the best version that they can be. So it's not rocket science, but it does take patience. It takes good analytical decision making, and an understanding how, giving yourself enough room to breathe and think on this, and then detail and figure out that big difference maker that is catapulting other websites. And then if you can apply that, you'll be in great shape. You'll take my job, and you can do this all by yourself. But seriously though, once you succeed, want you to hopefully, kind of take these big topics, and have a better, more understanding, understanding of SEO in general, so that it's not this kind of black box thing and that's led by shady marketing companies, and give you a little bit of a behind the scenes, peek into what we do on a daily basis and what works. So Google updates don't have to spell disaster for your law firm. With the right strategies, you can navigate these changes, you can protect your revenue, and set the stage for future growth. So hope this podcast was helpful. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Optimized Law Firm podcast. Remember, we know you have a lot of choices in who you listen to, who you get your marketing information from, and just want to thank you for taking a moment, giving us consideration, listening to this, and I really hope it was valuable. I have an open door policy. Always want to help. One of the key goals for this business is to create a more transparent, trustworthy environment between law firms and marketers. This stems from my father as an attorney. I started doing marketing for him in the first place, and didn't like the way the relationship was going between him and one of the big box marketing companies. And so that's really what propels me on a day-to-day basis. So feel free to contact me. My email is patrick@goconstellation.com. You can go to our website, goconstellation.com, and put in an inquiry. Happy to talk shop anytime. We are not a sales-heavy group, so rest assured that if you want to just ask a question or get a little bit more knowledge and about SEO, I'd love to help. So thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you, and peace out.